Let's talk about oil then. Oil prices slipped. This is after President Trump called on OPEC to ease the upward pressure on prices. The tweet had the desired impact. Prices overnight were down 3%. Vandana Hari of Vanda Insights is joining us to take us through if this decline is sustainable, what happens in terms of direction. Vandana, thanks very much. So the tweet had the desired impact, not the first time, but what from here?
Hi, good afternoon. So Trump's pressure on OPEC, we have seen it throughout 2018, and it did have its desired impact. He managed to persuade, especially the Saudi Arabia as OPEC leader. And OPEC overall, and if you recall, mid-2018, they agreed to set aside their cuts and increase output by up to 1 million barrels per day. So the assumption in the market right now, and then the murder of the Washington-based Saudi journalist Jamal Khashoggi, that has kind of introduced new tensions between the U.S. and the Saudi administrations as well. So the assumption in the market now is that Saudi Arabia will give in to pressure. Now, the question after yesterday's tweet is twofold. One is, is Saudi Arabia really under that much more pressure as a result of the Khashoggi affair? And second is, is it going to have the same impact when Brent is in the 60s as it did when Brent was in the 80s? There's a big difference. So I think that remains to be seen. We've seen more of a knee-jerk reaction. It's just very nervous markets right now.
Well, yes, very nervous markets, and we have seen very volatile moves as far as crude is concerned, from 86 the last quarter, now down to 50, and now we are trading at the levels of 65. Going forward for a period of, let's say, 6 to 12 months, what is the range that you expect crude will move in?
I have been talking about crude being relatively range-bound for this year, between 60 and 70, I would say, for Brent. When it was testing 60 and in recent days when it seemed like it could cross over 70 because of all the optimism, both times, again, I have maintained that it will be range-bound. See, the reason I say that is I do see a reasonably strong floor at 60 because OPEC is determined that the compliance rate so far of their cuts that began in January has been strong. Some members will take time to become fully compliant, but then Saudi Arabia has been overcompensating for them. And the reason I say 70 is exactly what you saw overnight. So that's going to be a major pressure going forward, I think, especially if it crosses 70 and continues going upward. Trump is likely going to use the argument that 70 is as damaging now as 80 might have been last year, given that the world economy, the economic growth is slowing down. So I see it range-bound, really, for the time being.
Okay, and Vandana, just scratching that point around Saudi Arabia production a tad bit, because reports suggest that in the month of November, the output was around 11.1 million barrels per day. That has come now down to 10.2 million barrels per day, and it's expected to come down further to 9.8 million barrels per day. Is that going to have an impact in the coming months as well, you think?
I think that is a very key point, and especially I would think that Trump's tweet was probably also, though it did not specifically mention Saudi Arabia, was probably aimed at them as well. Because aside from, you're absolutely right, so Saudi production in March is going to be approximately 1.3 million barrels per day below what they pumped in November. Now, just to put that in context, the entire cut by OPEC, non-OPEC is 1.2, and here we have the Saudis alone wanting to reduce by that much. So, and they've also been reducing their exports to the U.S., and we've seen when they've done that in the past, it displeases Mr. Trump. So I think that's a key question, what the Saudis are going to do with their production. I do believe they're not going to come under pressure. Maybe they'll increase their exports a little bit to the U.S., but I don't think fundamentally in terms of supply from OPEC, non-OPEC, including the Saudis, anything is really going to change at this point.
Okay, Vandana, thanks very much. Appreciate you joining in with some quick thoughts there. The market slipped again. We're down 50 on the Nifty. It was half that. There was 25 odd point slip, I think, when we started 10 minutes ago. It's a bit of yo-yo. But so far, the market's been unable to come back into the green. It's only slipped in the last 10 minutes or so. We take a very quick break here. We come back and we focus on the big story of the day, the Indian Air Force strike across the border, and the impact, the perspective, all of that coming up in just a bit.